Welcome to the Simply Real Life podcast. I'm Sarah, the founder of Simply Real Health, here to help you simplify, amplify, and elevate your life. This show is for those of you who want the real talk on how to live a more intuitive and intentional life, a life that's healthy from the inside out, and one that feels more effortless, aligned, simple, and more alive. We cover it all, from health, wellness, mindset, motherhood, daily habits and rituals, to business and relationships, creativity and growth, and tiny tricks to feeling your best, and the energetics behind it all filled with personal stories, unfiltered conversations, and of course, answering all of your burning questions, all in the way of simplicity and keeping it real, so that you can create your own version of your healthiest life. Let's do it. In the context of this real life story that actually happened to me this morning, we're going to be talking a lot about just this concept of surrender and control and bits of motherhood, although you do not need to be a parent to understand some of the things I'm going to talk about today, and a little bit of spirituality sprinkled in the mix. So if this sounds like something you're interested in or things that happen frequently in your life, then tune in to this one. I have a feeling that no matter what season of life you're in, some of these things may be very relatable to you. I'm just guessing because we're all human, you know? Okay, so this morning, here's what happened. I woke up today, was going through my morning routine. Kyle, my husband, is traveling this week for work, so it's just me and the kids. And I normally love that. We find our own little routine. It's slightly different, and there's some beautiful things about that and some things that are sometimes harder about that. So I woke up this morning and was going through my routine, and I get a text from our wonderful nanny who we just love and adore that she needs to take a sick day today. So I thought, okay, got it. And my first reaction, I was working out. I just started going crazy on the bike, just like, okay, in that moment, my entire day just comes crashing down. Everything that I had planned, including this was my day to record my podcast, like the thing that I had just set out to do, made the commitment for, made the space in my calendar. I knew that I could have an hour or two in my house with nobody here making noise and have them out. They were doing an activity today. And then going to go to the park. It was all set, And in that moment, everything comes crashing down. Nothing is going to go according to plan today. Okay, it is time to pivot. Let's see what things need to be figured out immediately. Is there anybody that could come help me? I sort of quickly thought through the schedule of the day. I'm like, nope, that's not going to work today for numerous reasons that probably are not worth getting into. But, I was trying to help myself out and say, what can I do here instead of just being mad or upset, which, by the way, were my very first impulses to feel, which are very normal. Got that news. Quickly, everything in my day has to shuffle and shift, and I'm making breakfast, but also trying to text my team on Slack and trying to help my podcast editor let her know that the episode may be later today. It may be on the weekend. Who knows? I'm kind of at the whim of what's going on today. And then I always in that moment try to think to myself, okay, what is the bright side here? Even though this is different, I try not to think about it as bad. Okay, what's the bright side? Okay, well, maybe I get to have a few extra little moments with my kids that I wouldn't have otherwise gotten. Okay, that's great. I love that. And especially at their little ages right now where it just is all so fleeting and so fast. I really do. I mean, I know some of you are going to roll your eyes at me, but I really do treasure so many of those moments. And because I choose to work and choose to want to pour into my business as well as into my family, it's never a perfect balance, and there's always part of my heart that tugs either way. But I know staying true to myself is being able to do both things. And it's not always doing them both well, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But when it comes to things like today, the reality is that my schedule is more flexible, which I am so thankful for. It also means that it is usually my day that is impacted more. While my husband is so wonderful of a human and he is so helpful and so all in as a dad and with our kids whenever he can, the reality of his job is not flexible at all. at all. So it really does fall on me. And that is something that I'm, again, very thankful for. So don't read into this the wrong way. I do love it. The thing that makes it really challenging, and I'm just being real, is that when you're trying to do two things at once, it is almost impossible because you are not doing anything well. You are trying to maybe communicate with your team or let people know what's going on, or that the schedule's slightly different than what everybody had planned, while also trying to be present enough to your kids who don't understand that, like, what is going on behind the scenes, So it's just this kind of juggling act. Whether it's something like that or something else, like your work schedule changes or somebody gets sick or you have to cancel a trip. I just think there's so many examples of this in life where we have to immediately just surrender to what's going on. Like, our plans are out the window, bye. And for most people, at least people like me who are definitely, I call myself a retired perfectionist, very much a control freak who has learned some healthier ways of going through life. And in this instance is one of those prime examples where my control freak really comes out. If you want to know another example where it really comes out, it's probably with my kids and the food that they eat. But I'm working on that. I'm really working on that. Just trying to not be so controlling, even though it is something I feel so passionate about and I feel so invested in. But sometimes, I take it a little bit too far. So just being honest about that. So anyways, whatever the situation may be, this happens a lot, right? Where plans change. We have to surrender. We have to go with the flow. We have to pivot. Like, something of what we expected is different. And our brain hates that, like, hates change, hates having to do something different when your time is so valuable and or feels like it's already stretched thin. To have like a full day, a full work day setback, at least for me, when right now I'm working, part-time. So losing any of those hours is a major hit, like during the week, to at least the things that I planned. So here's a couple things that I have learned over the course of time. And I feel like the things that motherhood has just magnified in me is like just being able to first feel the emotion and not shame myself and not feel bad about however I feel in the moments after it happens. I give myself, 5-10 minutes to just feel it, whatever it is, without trying to justify, without trying to look for the bright side, without trying to, see the positive quite yet. I just let myself feel how I'm actually feeling. And I do this because I have learned the hard way that if you don't do this, you end up carrying this around through the entire rest of your day, sometimes through the entire weeks, and you keep it all bottled in, and then it eventually explodes, and in a way that we don't usually want, whether that's like anger or yelling at someone, or it's bitterness, or your nervous system is so stressed because you're holding on to so much emotion that you don't realize maybe needs to be metabolized out. So I'm sitting there on the bike and I'm just thinking, okay, get it out, feel these feelings. And I think that has been one of the biggest lessons I have learned. This is something I talk about in Simply Real Life all the time. We spend an entire module on this in particular, is the feeling of feelings. Otherwise, they do get stored in your nervous system. And that's where you start to see disease happen. It's when you start to see like strange relationships to food, strange relationships to others, strange relationships to yourself, because your body is so weighed down. And I know some of you are going to think that that's a little out there and a little woo-woo, but I'm just telling you, it's like, just try it. Just give it a try. Okay. We have to have ways of shaking things off, actually physically, like shaking your body. I know this sounds so weird, but moving your body, doing a workout, going on a walk, getting fresh air, doing breath work, breathing through things, doing a meditation, journaling even can be a way of movement, because you're moving the pen on the paper, moving your body versus you're holding it and it's sitting stagnant inside of you. So oftentimes we just are always taught to brush off whatever we feel. Like, our culture is not wired and does not reward or positively help us in a way of like, yeah, you should just like stop and feel your emotions. We're taught like, there's no time for that. Keep going, get back on, just ignore it, just stuff it down. Don't think about it, numb yourself, distract yourself, online shop, look at social media, refresh your inbox. Like, it is all about just whatever you can do to not feel. And I just think that is such a key part of why so many people don't feel good a lot of the time, or have a hard time shifting or pivoting when they need to, because we're so just stuck with so many things on our shoulders or in our hearts or in our mind. They know that animals, when the animals go through some sort of traumatic experience, that they physically shake afterwards. If a bear is hunting down a deer and the deer is like running and sprinting, this is a weird example, sorry, but you'll get the point. The deer is running and they escape. Once they are done with that initial fight or flight response, the deer will actually physically start shaking to release a lot of that like nervous system trauma and that intensity. So anyways, what I'm saying, feel the intensity, great. Also then have a way to like let your body release it instead of just storing it in. Okay, the third thing, this is sort of like the third stage that I enter, is to start thinking about, okay, I'm just going to trust in why this is happening. Even if you can't see it in that moment, I have usually found that there's always a reason, even if it's something that you can't see even at the end of that day or even the end of that week. But a month later, you look back and you're like, oh, wow, there was something in there that I needed to learn, or something that I need to be given, or something that I needed to be reminded of, or something to pay attention to that maybe in a normal day I wouldn't have paid attention to. And, I almost started crying today when I was on the playground with my daughter. Oh my gosh. Here we go. I should just probably warn you that tears will probably be normal on this podcast, okay? I'm a crier. Again, releasing emotion. Tears are one of the best way. I remember just looking down at my daughter, and it was one of the first sunny days that we've had here in Seattle. I was out on the playground. My son was running around having a great time, and I just looked down holding my daughter's hand, and just thinking like, wow, like I wouldn't have gotten this moment had all the other things not happened today. And just being open, to those things, because they may just be so tiny and so slight. But I bet that like a month from now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, I will probably actually remember this day and the picture that I took of that, because it reminded me like just how fleeting this time is with my kids. And I know that there's no perfect balance. I know myself well to know that I would not be able to be a full-time stay-at-home mother right now, because I have so much passion and love for the work that I do, and it gives me so much life and so much energy. And it's just not ever a perfect balance. But I do think that there are these times where we get little reminders of, hey, maybe you're a little bit out of balance here, or a little bit off track, or maybe you've been focusing so hard on one thing, you kind of have forgotten some of the other things that are important to you, or these little reminders. So even if you can't see it, just trusting in the why and the bigger picture, and the belief that things are always happening for you, that nothing is happening to you. This is something we talk about in Simply Real Life, the method, actually a lot, because it has to do with your mentality and how you view the world, and therefore how you react to everything in your life that happens, the thoughts that you think, the emotions that you feel, and ultimately kind of where you land after a situation out of your control happens. Having that belief, I am always being led. And whether or not you believe in God, you believe in the universe, I do in both. And in such a way that it gives me just such a different reminder and perspective on things that happen. It's always for some sort of reason, even though I may not understand why in this moment. I do believe that there are reasons, and trusting that. So today, I just got to remember that, to have my palms open and to have an open heart, and to just being okay with surrendering, being okay with being led. It's always a reminder to me to let go of the control, because there's so many other things outside of control that are so beautiful and so unexpected, and these like little tiny gifts that you get when you can be a little bit more open. That's something I'm always working more on. So it's no surprise when I get these things that happen to me sometimes, where I'm like, got it. Okay. Got the message, thank you. And I know that hearing this is probably, for some of you, you're like, oh my gosh, okay. Yeah, it's so much easier to say that than to actually do it. And I know that. And I just think it's not necessarily what happens to us. in life, but it's how we react to it. And so just walking you through my sort of behind the scenes and this one tiny sort of ridiculous scenario that got me all worked up and feeling super anxious and feeling like I was just completely out of control this morning. These are the ways that I have helped walk myself through the process of going from that anxious place to walk into a place that feels more peaceful and more back to me, like getting back to myself and where I want to be and operate, which is more present wherever I am, wherever I'm being placed that day. You know, I believe that. You may not believe that, but wherever I am being placed or led that day is where I need to pour my time and attention and love to and let go of the rest. You know, there's always time to catch up. There's always time to figure it out. There's always alternatives and creative, situations and solutions. I truly believe in that. But I also do trust in the little nudges and the winks and the signs that you get. I will say too that when these things start to happen, it is really good to just take a note of them, whether that's mentally or maybe just journaling, things out. Because if it's something where you start to notice some patterns, that could be something where you are getting some pretty intense nudges, if you know what I mean. Pay more attention to this thing in your life. And again, this could mean a lot of different things. But I often find that God, or, if that word doesn't feel true to you, God, the universe, source, love, whatever it is, I always do think that it's trying to help guide us, help nudge us. And sometimes when we keep ignoring the nudges that we are constantly getting, or if you're seeing huge patterns keep repeating itself, it maybe is a sign like, okay, something maybe needs to change here. Am I not being honest with myself? Like, is it something externally that maybe there's a better solution for, a creative solution, or this used to work in the past, but maybe it's not working so well right now? So just the freedom to take what's coming in and use them as little lessons for yourself and things that over time really do help you grow and get better and also pay attention and intentional in your life. And that's really the whole point. So after I shared my, story today, I was like, oh, I forgot the funniest part of the story. Classic. Noah, my son, put too much toilet paper in the toilet, because he's learning the right amounts of things. And then the toilet overflowed while he was in there. And it was this panic moment and hilarious, but not hilarious moment where I'm like, oh my God, and there goes the baby. She's going to walk in on that water and then all over the floor. So I was like, okay, guys, hang on, Mama's got this. Get out the beach towels. By the way, nobody tells you as a parent, like how many old beach towels you will need for random things that happen. So I run down, get the beach towels, I'm cleaning it up. They're kind of very confused, a little scared. So it's just this funny situation where I also have to draw in the moment of where I'm like, this is so stressful. Oh my God, I can't handle this. I'm so overwhelmed. I'm so anxious right now, where I just have to think, can you laugh about this? This is actually funny. So as I shared it as my morning update, I'm like, having a real life moment over here. Bullet pointed all the things that were like going on. And then I shared about, okay, I just got the kids in the car. We're going to the swim lesson that was scheduled. And I had to just take a couple deep breaths for myself and just knowing to do that, like these little tiny moments of like, okay, I just need to reset. I also think that's just kind of a practice and a learned behavior. And I was thinking to myself, I want to start doing that more around my kids itself, of like telling them what mommy is doing. Mommy needs a minute to just breathe and to calm my body and to take a second, because doesn't that normalize it a little bit? Hopefully they can grow up thinking, oh, okay, everybody has moments where they feel sort of out of control or flooded or just things feel overwhelming. And so like, what are things that adults do? And having that be normal. But after I shared that, that's when the comments and the questions started flooding in of how could you quickly get to that place of making peace with it and surrendering and even getting to the place of looking for joy in that day or in those moments or thinking, okay, there must be a reason why. So hopefully this helps to just explain in a little bit more details. Again, thank God for the podcast, right? Because trying to explain this in an Instagram post would just take forever. And I just know everyone's seasons of life are different. Your experiences with this, the examples of this may be different in your life, but take the things that resonate, leave the rest. But I always find it helpful when people share the things that are working for them, because then it just gives you more ideas, where instead of being stuck in the same patterns and the same autopilot reactions and the same extremes of emotions that you could stay stuck in if you didn't have ways to let them move through your body, let them move through your nervous system, practices of like release, whether it's mental release, emotional release, physical release, are really important, because we just deal with so much and so many different scenarios and emotions, things going on during the day that sort of get thrown at us, and being able to come from a place of a little bit more peace and steadiness and grounding, again, after you feel the initial feelings, I think it can be really life-changing. And also just a reminder too, that you never actually know what's going on in somebody's life. And even the glimpses or things that you may see online, the people that you follow, me included, that it's not always perfect. We're sharing things that are hopefully inspiring and encouraging, but also sometimes in those real life moments or harder moments or more challenging moments, there's also things to be shared about that. So I hope that this is just a tiny example of that. And I'm hoping to be able to do it more now that we have this much better format to do it in. And speaking to all of my control freaks or retired control freaks, sometimes when you're thinking about these things and you're like, oh, that sounds like a good idea, but you're not actively in a moment of needing them, I always just find it helpful to start a little note on my phone. Okay, the next time this happens, I'm just going to take some notes here. What could I think of instead? So just a little side bonus tip. Because I'm recording while my kids are napping, they are almost up. So I hope that this was helpful. And thank you guys so much for encouraging me to share a little bit more and asking the questions. And again, this is the theme of this podcast. You ask the questions, I will come with the answers, though they may not be perfect or tidy or succinct sometimes. But I do hope that it's helpful. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week, whatever it may entail. If you enjoyed this episode and want more like it, make sure you're subscribed to the Simply Real Life podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, and maybe share it with a friend or two. That would mean the world.